There we are. We are live. Yeah,
Yeah.
the one part I don't know. Have you ever read the? There were the Avengers that were out in the late '70s when I first started reading the Avengers, the George Perez
Mm.
ones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and there's like one moment in 161 that was always cool, where Scarlet Witch first got to be a badass, and because her powers could take down Ultron until Captain America
Yeah.
stuck his head in the way. They
Ultron
made
just blows through the dimension, starts killing everybody,
yeah.
and then one that just starts magicking and starts breaking down everywhere.
Right, right. They actually redid that moment in the Thanos, the
Hmm.
second
Yep.
parter. That's when Thanos was like, "Drop the bombs on everyone," as she was taking out Thanos.
Hmm. It works. It worked. Yeah.
Yeah. Though she had a dumb line, I remember.
Hmm.
I don't even know who
I
you
don't.
are. You will, or something like that. Like,
Yeah. So yeah. Movie line.
yeah. But her line in the comic was like, "Because I'm a witch," or something like that, and then she
Yeah.
started
I
wrecking
am the
Thanos.
great. I am the greatest menace you've ever faced.
Right.
No, no, I especially remember that issue because it's the one where they debuted the short-lived Paris costume,
Ah.
the one that was all colors everywhere.
Okay.
Lasted
That
with like 3 issues or something.
Right, and I think the issue before was the Ant-Man one that was really cool, where they had the
It,
Ant-Man lose his memory and then he was taking out the
no, it's,
Avengers.
it's it's the same issue.
That was the same issue? Okay.
Yeah. Mm.
That was good stuff. And then the great tactician Captain America wrecks everything by sticking his head
Oh
in the
yeah.
hole that
Oh,
Ultron fell through. That always annoyed me. I'm just like, oh,
oh
come
yeah,
on.
but Jim Shooter was trying to make like Captain America wasn't that smart as he thought he was, and Iron Man was always getting on his nerves.
uh, yeah, I haven't read those in a long, long time. I'll have to check them out. Though I've looked at
Yeah.
that issue and that scene. I remember looking at
Mm.
that when that Avengers movie came out.
Oh, that run made a mark on me. I have very fond memories of reading those stories.
Me too. Like I said, that was I think because it's funny because I always have two memories of comics. Before and after Hulk 200, and there was some stuff that I got, but like Hulk 200 is what I consider my the start of my collecting. I was 9 going on 10, and that's when I realized they all went in a row.
Hmm.
So I remember after that when I first started collecting comics, like buying them off the newsstand, like knowingly. But I had comics before then. So it's like I have some Avengers stuff I read before then, and I'm like, oh, and I remember it, but it's like it's kind of like before I started collecting the Avengers. So it's
Hmm.
like I had some of the earliest George Perez stuff, but I didn't start buying it off the stands till right around 160.
Mm. Well, I figured out quickly that they went in a row because the first comic I got it had references to previous stories. The
Ah,
first Marvel comic I got, so I had to read that because Disney's didn't. You could read a Disney comic in any order.
right.
So when I was reading Marvels, even though I didn't buy everything, but because I couldn't, at 6 I didn't have money, and and my parents thought that comics would ruin my brain.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, they were right.
Good
Uh,
evening, Gus. Mind the comics. Jared, I bought Night Fisher yesterday. Think you'll enjoy it. Okay. Night Fisher. How are those Avengers comics and Brazilian editions, Paolo? HTV low 70s?
yeah. Oh, you can. It's they're there from the
Good
beginning because they start. The Avengers were the sort of the comic that they went further back when they started when the Editora Abril got the rights in 1979, and then they progressively got the rights to other stuff because, for example, they couldn't run Spider-Man and Hulk stories until 1983. But the Avengers they had the rights to, and they started with the Avengers in pretty soon. But it was the late '60s Avengers with Black Panther and the Hawkeye in the miniskirt. So if there was one comic that we all read a lot of as much as we could, it was the Avengers because all the important stuff, the world shaking stuff, happened there. Not even in Fantastic Four, which at the time they ran Roy Thomas. Then they did a major jump to the Marv Wolfman run, and then after that they went straight to the John Byrne run. Daredevil, they didn't bother with anything pre Frank Miller. Hulk, they went straight for Bill Mantlo, no Roger Stern. They ran some Black Panther from Jungle Action. They even tried doing some of the Steranko Nick Fury stories because they were good. I think they were trying to make sure that people understood how good those were and how important it was to read all of them. Because when the two guys who became editors first showed up to Editora Abril saying we have a plan to publish Marvel and you have to do this and this and this and this. Well, can't we just do it like we do Disney? No. The thing is, you could do DC because pre-Crisis DC the continuity was a lot looser, but you couldn't do it with Marvel from the 1970s. It was all previously in Marvel comic, and then it all ended with a cliffhanger, and you had to buy the next issue.
By the way, do you know who Scott Edelman is?
Yes.
He was a editor at Marvel, or might have been an assistant editor at Marvel in the 70s, and also a writer. I only met him once at Flo Steinberg's memorial, but he's a Facebook friend now. But he also does a podcast that I've never listened to called Eating the Fantastic, where he talks to a lot of writers, sci-fi writers, I think, especially, and things. But I just noticed he just posted on Facebook that the latest one is out, and where he's in. And I think that the reason it's called Eating the Fantastic is he goes and has dinner or lunch with these writers and talks to. Somehow that's always. I've never even listened to it, and I just don't want to hear the sound of silverware. I don't know what it is.
That's the problem, and I found out that the hard way. The only time I did an interview in a restaurant. Don't do interviews in restaurants because I had an old school tape recorder, and then I was listening to it. Where's the interview?
But anyway, he just posted today that he's doing an interview with Howard Bender, who I know is a cartoonist in the 80s. He did what was it? Mr. Fix-It, I remember he did, amongst other things. But I didn't realize that Howard Bender was on staff at Marvel from 1974 to 1980.
I didn't know that.
I just never knew that until I saw. So I'm gonna try and listen to that one because it says they talk about.
Maybe he worked on Crazy Magazine. Let me check.
Maybe they said they're talking about showing his portfolio to Stan Lee over dessert. How they're both terrified of production manager John Verpoorten. Our first meetings with John Romita. Important life lessons from Mike Esposito. So I'm like, you know what? That one interests me. I'm going to have to give that one a listen to. Oh, there's Wilson.
Oh.
Good evening, Wilson.
Good evening, Wilson. My friends. Hello. How are you guys doing?
Doing all right. Did you ever know? Do you know who Howard Bender is? He's a cartoonist from the 80s. I remember his stuff in the 80s. He did something called Mr. Fix-It for Apple, amongst other stuff. But I just realized I never knew before he was on staff at Marvel from 1974 to 1980. He's in a podcast with Scott Edelman, who was also. Well, I only met once at Flo's memorial.
Right, Scott. I do recall the other guy. I don't recall his name at all.
Yeah,
I do have some creative credits here. One story in a Crazy Magazine written by Jim Owsley.
Okay.
A couple of Micronauts fill-ins. A couple of pinups in the official handbook. Pinup in Savage Sword. Oh, one backup story in Peter Porker. Yeah. And Kickers Inc. number 4.
Oh, Kickers Inc.
He's one of these guys who kicked around a little bit in the early 80s. Like I remember him especially because my friend Ed Murr, whose mother just died this week, was working when we were going to college in the mid to late 80s. Ed was working at a place called Apple Comics, which published ElfQuest for a little while in the late 80s, amongst other things. I think Vietnam Journal was one of the big Apple comics too. If you remember that one actually did pretty well in the mid to late 80s. And Howard Bender was doing a comic called Mr. Fix-It at the time, which was like this Silver Age tribute comic. That was pretty good. But I remember it too because never forget that after they used to send out things. Apple Comics send out you could send out little like one sheets to the comic shops to promote your comics or whatever, and they had what to do to promote Mr. Fix-It. And at the time, Hulk was in his Joe Fix-It stage. And I just remember one of the suggestions was shelf it next to the Hulk. People might think it's a tie-in. That just cracks me up to this day. Jared, happy late birthday, Professor Jared. My daughter and I really enjoyed your art class about fugitive colors. Ah, okay, that's good. I was pointing that out in my let me see if I can show it to you. Fugitive colors are colors in paint and especially markers that aren't stable. They fade and disappear. And that's one of the reasons I do these swatches for all my markers, where I can not only have these out when I'm choosing colors, but also I can see if markers fade over time. Like I usually do. Matter of fact, I got to date this one. I just did this one this year. 2/5/23. That's what this one should be. And this one was from before I dated it. But this one is from like 2012 or 2013. But most of the colors are pretty solid. But there's one of the markers I just got. Matter of fact, this one is 2/5/23. It's the purple Blick marker. Let me make this big just so see if we can capture it. See that one there that's got that stripe of purple next to it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
This one, whoops. Right here in the middle now.
Yep. It's coming in pretty clear.
That one swatch that looks pinkish is that purple from like 3 months ago.
Wow.
That's how fugitive that color, meaning it runs away. That color goes away. I don't think I've ever seen a color disappear like that in such a short period of time. And this isn't even out in the sun or anything. It's just either sitting on my desk or tucked away.
It was a one-armed man that made him run.
Yeah. I was explaining that. So I've been using that color a lot in my latest
funny, as Sleepy Reader just got a bunch of Don Lawrence's Storm.
I saw that.
Yeah, and I made a comment that his copies seem to have very vibrant colors, and I don't remember the 2 volumes that I read in Portuguese in the 80s being so shiny.
Interesting. Could be fugitive colors they were printed with. Who knows?
Well, speaking of Sleepy Reader, he's a personal friend of Scott Edelman.
Oh, that's right. He is, because they used to be in writing groups.
Yeah.
Out there. Mm-hmm. Speaking of fugitive colors, I got a one comic just for its cover this week. $6 this cost me. But this is one of those DC Dawn of DC Night Terrors, but this is black light ink they used on it.
Oh.
Which I've never seen before. Let me give you a good shot of it again. I don't have a black light. I'll have to get one. The cover itself isn't particularly terrific. But I just kind of wanted a sample of it because I guess DC is doing a bunch of black light inks, because about 2 weeks ago, I saw another cover with black light ink. And I was like, ooh, do I want to? I kind of want to get one of those just to have as a sample. So because I don't have any black white ink comics, in case somebody ever asks me to do one, I'll at least know what they look like. But I kind of didn't like it. It was actually worse than this cover, whatever cover it was, because you know what it was. The other one, and it might even be with this one. It was a cover that was pen in pencil. And it wasn't even inked, and it was all sketchy. And then they turned it into a black light, and it just didn't look that good. I'm like, do I want one? I said, nah, I didn't want it. Then I went home and had sort of, regret at not getting one. I'm like, oh, I should have got that one. So then this week I saw this one, and I was like, all right, I'll get this black light one. But I have zero idea if black light ink is fugitive or not. I wonder. I have zero idea, but these all have to be done with special inks. This isn't the normal CMYK process. So they have to run this through whatever special press that can use their special inks, I imagine. But I just thought it was cool. I actually read the issue, and it was okay. It was Dr. Midnight, Batman possessed by Dead Man. And then Robin, who's the Robin that uses guns? The young, small one? He's got a sword in this one. Damien?
No,
Yeah, I think
no,
it's Damien Robin. And
Damien's the Robin now, but
okay.
he's more of a ninja because
he got a sword in this one, right?
Yeah, he's Talia's son. It's Jason who uses guns.
Okay,
Jason Todd.
But anyway, the story itself was okay. It was, I guess, Night Terrors is. They stopped all of their regular books for a month and are doing the whole DC universe is crossing over into Night Terrors. And Insomnia is the name of the guy. Oh, and it's the Golden Age Sandman, not the Neil Gaiman Sandman who's in here. And I guess he made everybody into the nightmare realm. And so that everybody's hanging out in this nightmare. He turned like all of Gotham and I guess the world into this nightmare realm. And all the superheroes have to deal with it. That's the crossover event. But I've actually heard good things about DC recently. So I guess people are liking what they're doing. I read this and it was okay. It was Scott Williamson is writing it. Who I've liked his indie stuff, and the art is by Giuseppe Camuncoli, Cumuncoli, Camuncoli, I don't know. Stefano Nessi, Nessi, and Casper Wingard, whose stuff I've been buying in indie stuff, and I don't know what he drew here. They're all jamming it out, but the art was fine. They're taking on nightmare monsters. Like I said, I bought it for the cover just to have a sample of this in my cover samples.
I've never really studied anything about the blacklight colors, so I don't know if I would imagine there's a science to it itself, why they choose the particular colors they choose. I don't know if there's a limitation to the palette. I don't know.
Well, I think
I'm very curious on that.
They pick colors that fluoresce under black light. And I think fluoresce just means glow. So they have to pick certain pigments that glow under black light. That's what black light. But I also know from reading the. Do you remember the Marvel black light posters from the early 70s?
Yes.
They put out a book of those just a couple of years ago. Big oversized book reprinting those posters. And I remember reading some of the reviews of it, and they were one of the things they were saying is the whatever ink they use now for black light isn't as good as the 70s stuff. It doesn't fluoresce as much. I imagine that it was whatever they used in the 70s was probably too toxic and fell out of use.
That's what I'm
So
thinking, that they
yeah.
probably had radioactive material back then, which makes it a lot different than what they're allowed to use now.
Yeah, I really don't know the science behind it either. All I know is the ink has to fluoresce under black light, whatever that might mean. Very cool idea. Hope you don't mind, but I'll start using it with my daughter's marker. Oh yeah, always swatch your markers and use them, swatch them on like the same type of paper you're going to draw on. I usually draw with my markers on Bristol board, so I swatch everything on Bristol board because markers look different on different paper.
And you can swatch whatever color material you're using. So
Oh,
not only
paint, yeah,
markers,
whatever you got.
paints, watercolors is always good, so you can test it out to see, to see how the materials will be after a certain amount of time.
Whenever I get a new set, I got a new set of watercolors recently. The first thing I always do is swatch it, and this is on watercolor paper. So I did a bunch of swatches. So I always find it fun to swatch them. Draw up some rectangles, swatch out your colors, get to see what they all look like. It's much easier than actually drawing something with them. What up, Sequential Geek? 420. That's what time it is.
Hey, Sequential Geeks back. A long time he hasn't visited us,
Yeah.
but he's still doing videos from his trips around Cleveland and in the comics he buys.
Oh, I'll have to follow him. I don't think I've followed him. I'll have to check that out. Ba-ba-ba-ba.
Yeah, I have a set of markers that I had gotten for Christmas that we were trying out, just to try them out. They're alcohol-based markers, and a few of the colors in them are, for lack of a better term, fluorescent. So you're not.
Yeah.
So when you look at them, they kind of have this glow to them. I've been using them when I do sketch cards, to have a generic background that if the card doesn't have anything going on with it, it's like, oh, I'll use one of these colors that makes it look slightly different. And I do enjoy them because they are oranges and yellow greens and stuff like that. And the ones I don't use, funny enough, are the purple ones. They do something to the marker itself, just sitting there. It like clumps up on certain colors. So it's almost as if the pigmentation is coming out of the alcohol and just clumping up at the edge of the marker.
Yeah, cheap markers especially are tricky. I've got, where is it? I bought these for the girls who live next door to use when they come over to make art. Like here's a set, pro markers. What do we got in there? 36 markers, does it say? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 60 markers. These 60 markers cost as much as these 4 markers. I think this was like $24, and these are like $6 a piece. So I'm not sure how long the color in these markers sticks around. I swatched them all out, of course. We'll see, but they're
I need to
might be some fugitive colors in there.
I need to swatch the markers that I've gotten. I want to test them out.
Denver area shops are keen on the collectors, so the prices are not as thrift as most.
So I got these from Five Below.
Green Tomato is the name of the actual markers. I did not name them. That's the name of the actual color. The only markers that don't have color names on them are usually the Sharpies, which have color names, just not on the markers themselves. The tips on those cheese markers wear out quick, though, right? I don't know. I haven't used them enough to tell. Like I said, I usually use the art mark and the more expensive ones. So I don't know how quickly the tips wear out on the cheaper ones. Like I said, they're you can get some out those alcohol based markers super cheap. I mean, 60 for $24 is whoa.
Like
What do you got, Burke Wilson?
I recently picked up these markers.
Ah,
These are from Five Below, so they're $5.
oh, okay.
And so they're 12 markers, and there really isn't. It's 6. The ones on the other side are the exact same markers. So technically, they're 12 physical items here, but they're the same colors. And I haven't swatched them yet. I was just more curious because I like the design of it. I like the look of it. And sometimes he has a huge tip
Okay.
on one end,
Yeah, let's
and the
get you
other end,
big so you can show
this
us
is the
those.
finish.
All right, so that's what they call the bullet point, the fine one.
Right.
And then on the other side,
side,
what do they call that?
I
It's
think
not
it's
quite a
chisel.
chisel tip. I've seen that called like a 6-in-1 tip or something like that. Who had those old like Charpak does art marker had those for a while.
This is what the box looks like in case anyone looks for it for themselves.
Wow, okay.
And as you can see, $5.
Is that all
But
in
their alcohol.
Japanese?
No, this is in English.
Okay.
Let's see. Distributed by 616 Holding Inc. So it's made in China, but it's a Philadelphia-based company. And the text on here is just the font that they use. That's artsy, for lack of a better term. There we
Okay.
go. So it's
you want to see some fugitive colors? These are I bought some of my earliest markers that I bought when I first started getting into markers again around 2010. I used them in the 80s in college. Then I used paint all the time. Wanted to get into them. And I bought some, and I didn't want to dive right into Copics because they're the most expensive. So I found what's called Shinhan markers, which are Korean, and I was told are used by the whole like Korean animation industry. They all use Shinhan markers. And matter of fact, all of these are from 2011. It says that these are the Pit Artist pens down there. Those are all the swatches from 2011. But let me show you this. These Shinhan ones, see these ones up here? Whoops, there we go. These all used to be light blues. Now they're light blue grease stains. So those were all the few that whole series of them from, let's see their numbers. From like 1 foot mint, pale baby, cool shadow, aqua mint, and frost. All few. So it's like all the light blues and light greens. I don't know what pigment they use. All fugitive because they're gone now. All the other ones are fun. This is and I did this in 1/8/11. I've got a date down there. So this set is old, but those ones are gone. But you can see here are some acrylic paints I swatched. Like I said, I swatch everything. There are some Sharpie fine points I swatched. So I didn't even do solid color with them because they're the real fine points. Well, that's what I do. I swatch all of my markers I get and all my paints. Let's see. People here saying stuff. I wonder how many art companies even know how fugitive their pigments are. I'm hoping my high-end ones at least have some quality control. I think Copic knows, the high-end ones definitely. Copic definitely knows that because Copic sells itself on the fact that their pigment is always the same. You can buy any batch of like Copic Tahitian blue marker, and it will be the same as the last batch of Tahitian blue. That's what they when you buy this cheap stuff, you never know what you're going to get in terms of you may like this particular blue that comes in the cheap set, but the next one you may get might not have the same blue in this, even though it's got the same name, because their quality control isn't the same. Tit Goblin is a funny name. It is. Especially on my daughter's hand, no tip is strong enough. The color side is strong. She can smash them. Yeah. That's also, there is a big difference between you and I using these tips and a kid smashing them. Bought a Sakura Adenti pen yesterday. Ooh, Mark's on a lot of mixed media. I'm sick of redoing signatures on art. This seems like a good market. I like the Sakura as a company art supply. Well, yeah, I bought their stuff too. I think I might have a Sakura. These ones I just bought too. I forget who makes them because I have to use Google Translate to see what they say. But they're markers and a brush. These are designed to do calligraphy with, so they're supposed to imitate calligraphy pens, hence why they look like bamboo and have the loop on the end. I have no idea what the loop is for when you make calligraphy, but like bamboo calligraphy brushes have a loop on the end. So I got these off of Amazon for like $10-12 just because I thought they looked cool and wanted to try them out. Actually, my sister got these off my wish list for my birthday. Now I remember. I had just recently put them on, so try those ones out. I just finished bubble wrapping my remaining short boxes. Oof, up to 80. I ran out of ink for my Sharpie, writing numbers on each side. Wow. Each one all with thick font. Like you needed to know that. We tell you all the stuff you don't need to know. And I still haven't used my electric eraser very much that I got with my last art supply order. I used my flat one I got more than that. This is the little flat one I got. And I use, this one all the time for erasing small stuff. So it's like I never had reached for my electric eraser. Oh well. I still like to try stuff. It was only like $12, $14 or something. Not an expensive one. Something interesting that I've pulled off my shelf this week, which got me thinking again about Jack Cole, classic pinup art of Jack Cole. Who's the guy who did Plastic Man? There's the back. And what's interesting, too, this came out in 2010, which I think I bought it then. And once again, there's a little biography, only 5-6 pages of Jack Cole in the beginning. And for those of you who don't know, Jack Cole killed himself in 1958. No one quite knows why. He sent a note to Hugh Hefner, which is public, and he sent a note to his wife, which isn't public. But he never really explained why he killed himself, at least not to Hugh Hefner. But it's funny because in August of 1958, at just 43 years old, Cole, killed himself. And when this came out in 2010, being that I just turned 57, I was probably 43 or 44. So at that time, I was the exact age that Jack Cole was when I first read this, when he killed himself. Now, 13 years later, I'm like, wow, 43 seems really young. Didn't seem that young. I mean, it was young back when I was 43, but now it seems even younger that he killed himself. But it was interesting. Once again, it got me thinking, because Jack Cole was interesting too because they say he moved to New York City to be a gag cartoonist, but he had no work lined up, and he wasn't that good at gag cartooning. So, and this is like 1940 or something like that. It's early in the comic industry. So he started working in the comic industry for what's his name, Busy Arnold, and a couple other people, or names I don't remember. And then he eventually created Plastic Man, and that worked for him for a while. And then he just got sick of comics. He was in comics for like 15 years or something, quite a while. And he decided once again to be a gag cartoonist. The only problem was, as he said, 13 years or something had passed him by of gag cartoons which he wasn't even paying. He didn't know if his jokes were old or new because he hadn't been reading any gag cartoons. And there was this whole sort of where these classic pinup cartoons come from is in the late 40s and early 50s. There was this whole group of, what are they, Humorama? I forget who the publisher was. And it's like I've got a bunch of the collections of Dan DeCarlo doing stuff like this too.
Humorama was owned by
Goodman, Martin Goodman's
by
brother.
Goodman, yeah.
Humorama, yes.
Yeah, it had the same address as Marvel.
Right. So, but there was a whole bunch of sort of risque gag cartoon books.
Yeah.
Most of them not. But that got me to thinking. If you remember back to when I what's his name, Petty, the pinup guy, the guy who invented the pinup in the 30s before the word was even coined. Richard Petty. No, Richard Petty's the driver. I can't even remember the illustrator's name now, Petty, but I read the biography of him and had that book.
George Petty?
What was that?
Is it George?
Is it George Petty? It might be George Petty. But I remember at that time thinking and discussing this with you guys, how, I forget how conservative and repressed American culture was. In the 30s, the only place you could go to see a sexy picture of a woman was in the new Esquire magazine with George Petty's pinups. It's like there was nothing there, movies couldn't even be that sexy anymore. There was no TV, of course, no internet. There was no Playboy yet. So it was like and I think that's part of the reason that these humor magazines, there were so many of them, even though they were lowbrow. There were so many of them in the late 40s and early 50s. You still couldn't get anything as sexy as this anywhere in America. It just stuff like pictures, and you couldn't get photos of sexy women, so you could get under the table sort of drawings of sexy women, as cartoon books. So it's like that's something I never ever think of, and until he was also Hugh Hefner hired him on staff, Jack Cole. So he became Playboy's in '58. I think he hired him when Playboy started. So he became Playboy's staff cartoonist in early issues of Playboy. No, he killed himself in '58. So Playboy had to start earlier than that. So he became Playboy's staff cartoonist, and early issues of Playboy have Jack Cole stuff all over him. He was associated with it. But like until Playboy was around, the only sort of sexy pictures of women you could get were drawings in these humor magazines. It's like, The highbrow stuff was, of course, Vargas and Petty and whoever else that started in the 30s and kept going into the 40s. It's a weird thought that you couldn't, American culture was so repressed, you couldn't get a sexy picture of a woman in pop culture.
Incredible.
Yeah. It's funny because even going back to the Renaissance, there were always women willing to pose naked for art.
Right.
But in America, it takes until Betty Boop.
Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah,
nuts.
yeah. But Betty Boop kind of made it acceptable to have
She was
sexy women.
she was but that was the 20s she started, right?
Yeah.
And then of course movies got censored because movies in the 20s before they were censored were getting sexy.
Yeah, and
But
then we had the actual Betty Page.
right, that was and that was I think that was after Playboy though.
Was
I
it?
don't know because those
No.
magazines were all hard to get. I think they weren't like on the newsstand. I think Playboy, and also I remember reading that Playboy actually benefited from comics being in decline because they needed something to distribute. That's why how Playboy got distributed.
Playboy was distributed by American News, the same guys that went out of business and were mob connected and made Marvel almost shut down.
Right.
But they also distributed Playboy.
Right. Buying and talking art supplies is Tit Goblin's happy place. Me too. Just look at Mr. Paulo. He's a 43-year-old teenager, I believe.
Yes, I am.
So young. Big influence on Darwin Cook? I would imagine so. I mean, Jack Cole was a big influence on everyone, and these pinup stuff.
And on Kyle Baker, even though Kyle Baker isn't about even though it's not about his work is not about pinups, but you can see it in Why I Hate Saturn. Because the main character from Why I Hate Saturn is not supposed to be sexy, but the drawing it's really interesting. Yeah.
Just think about it too. He mentions the book. The only place where you could get sexy in America was literature, and that would be scandalous if it got too. We all know famous books. I can't even think of them now. Who were scandalous over here in America because they had sex scenes in them, and we would read them now and go, "What?
Where's the actual sex scene?"
There was a James Joyce book, I think it was, that was famous for its sex scene. James Joyce. And everybody picked it up and read it and couldn't make head or tails out of it because it's James Joyce. Had to go to the local gin joint at 4 a.m. to see a snuff film out in the bayou. I don't know how sexy a snuff film would be.
Jesus.
Playboy starts in 53. Okay, so it's 53. Then he was Jack Cole was with Playboy from 53 to 58 when he killed himself. Betty Boop, she was hot. Yeah.
But she was
that's slides you would hold up to the. But yeah, that stuff was.
But in World War II, Betty Boop was the only thing resembling a female that servicemen had access to.
No, they had they had pinups. They had like Rita Hayworth. So they did have World War. They would actually get sent pinups, the American GIs, and Rita Hayworth I think was the #1 pinup.
She was hot.
Yeah. We're age twins, Paolo. Stupid, sexy flanters. Lady Chatterley's lover had all kinds of lawsuits. Yeah, there was one of them. American World War II airplane nose art. Yeah, that was sexy. But like none of that was in really pop culture. That was all sort of under the radar. I mean, there were plenty of Americans who wanted sexy stuff, but the pop culture wasn't allowed to have it. It's strange. So you had to get sort of, cartoon books with sexy drawings in them under the table. You wouldn't have one of these Humorama books on your coffee table.
Yeah, South Seas was a brief genre because the movie set in the South Pacific,
right?
But and even then, and before the Hays Code, they made the natives wear bras.
Right. I remember that scene in From Here to Eternity with the two people making out on the beach in the waves. That was scandalous at the time. Everybody went to the movies just to see that scene. So it's like this was the only place you could get sexy women. Weird. Nowadays nowadays you can't escape them. So
nowadays all the people on the internet have anime waifus.
Yeah. Such a weird thing to think. And the GIs found WW2 French girls. But it was very efficient to just get excited over women's ankles. Yeah. Well, since everyone's here, I think we should bring up our lost comrade. After the end of last week's show, I got the news that King Spoet, Scott Corcoran is his real name, one of our regular viewers who always posted King Spoet in the house whenever he showed up, died. This is his, just back in May, he sent me this G.G. Allen. Graphic novel that he did. He was an architect who also liked to do painting and comics, and he was in a punk band called the Spoets in the 90s. I think he still played in the 2000s too. And he was even on, there's a famous episode of, which show was it? Hold on, I got his obituary here. Jerry Springer show. Where G.G. Allen made an appearance on the Jerry Springer show, and they also had other punk bands, and the Spoets were the other punk band, so he got to appear in the Jerry Springer show and be outrageous. And he, like, just reading this is about G.G. Allen, who I've heard lots of tales of G.G. Allen before, but they're fun to watch. But in the back, he's got a little story, King Spoet in the Case of the Disappearing Microphone. So he's got his own little backup story of his days being in a punk band. And it's just crazy, the stuff went on. It is just crazy. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And it was his thing to try to drive unsuspecting audiences out of the place. That was his punk band, the Spoets. No wonder no one has ever heard, none of my punk friends ever heard of them. Like, no wonder they drove everyone away. But yeah, he died. Just like I said, I'm friends with him on Facebook, and a couple of weeks ago, I saw something about on his Facebook page. Somebody posted something about him being in the hospital. Keep him in your thoughts. And then there was a picture of him in the hospital, giving him the thumbs up. Then at the end of last week's show, I went on Facebook, and there's a whole bunch of stuff how he died of stage 4 cancer of something. But just figured out we'd say goodbye to King Spoet. And he sent me, what was the other one he did? He sent me a couple of the comic size stuff. This is bigger. This is graphic novel size.
Elvis Chicken, that was it. He sent me that one. He did too. And I think he was working on another issue of that.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I think Sequential Geek would like Elvis Chicken.
Yeah, oh no, terrible. Yeah. Sad news, right? We don't have that many watchers that we can lose any to. You put that on full screen? Sure. Let's put that on full screen for you.
A couple of weeks ago, one of the guys who was there it is.
There's GG. I'll show you some of the. There's lots of nudity on the inside. There's GG walking down Manhattan. There's naked GG doing his show. For those of you who don't know about GG Allen, he used to take a dump during his show and throw it at the audience. So, King Spoet, there's the back. Good book, too. And this is what I call just get it done artwork. He's not being precious about it. He just kind of wants to make a comic. So he knocks it, he gets it done. And I enjoyed it. Sorry to see him go.
Yeah, we've been losing a few of the internet people. A few weeks ago,
he was
one of the one of the regulars on the regular guest on the Thinking Critical channel. He also had his own YouTube channel, Skip and Tosh. He also died of cancer, and he was 37.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And it's a shame because he was really enthusiastic about modern stuff, which is not something that most of the YouTubers do nowadays. They get more views out of doing drama, but Skip was actually a fan, and it was a kind of a shock for everyone.
What chicken, Costa?
Yeah, no, Elvis Chicken.
Elvis
Really?
Chicken. That was another one of his comics. I don't know if you can get his comics anywhere now. King Spoet did draw this. Yes, he was an architect and a punk rocker and an artist. I think he did sculpture too. I've seen a lot of his sculpture on Instagram. You can find him on my Instagram and see his sculpture too. I think he goes by Scott Corkern, Corkern, is his actual name, but he usually goes by King Spoet. I think he may go by King Spoet on Instagram too. He went by. Kind of reminds me of Gary Panter art. Yeah. Speaking of REP, this is what I decided I was going to do tonight for King Spoet. This is now the comic book equivalent of pouring one out for your homies. Instead of pouring one out, I'm gonna rip up a comic, and I have picked Batman Incorporated #3 by Grant Morrison and Chris Byrne, a comic I like because I didn't want to do a comic I didn't like. With my favorite Batman identity matches Malone on the cover. Well, I often wonder, do you think people took Matches Malone seriously? Because no one gave him that nickname. Batman had to come on, think of who do I want to be? Somebody with a gimmick. Matches Malone. He'll light matches with his thumb all the time. That's what it'll be. Matches Malone. And do you think he just showed up lighting matches with his thumb saying, my name is Matches Malone? And everybody just went, cool, your matches. Or did they just go, what the hell is this?
No, especially because his job is setting up criminals with gigs. And Bruce Wayne is setting up... If he gets a reputation, he needs to set up the criminals with gigs that actually work. So what? Is he giving criminals work?
Cool. I would check it out. Yeah, rip the hell out of it for him. Very punk rock. So yeah, like I said, this is actually pretty good. If you've never, I'm not a huge Grant Morrison fan, but this series, Batman Incorporated, is actually pretty good, and it's funnier than I ever thought it would be. He's doing a lot of Silver Age riffs, and some of it is just funny. But here we go. We're gonna go full screen. Here we go. We'll rip one up for King Spoet. Can I get it? Oh my goodness! Can
you rip a comic
so long? I can't even rip it.
The unrippable comics.
Here we go. We'll rip that. We'll rip this up for King Spoet. See if we can go this way. There we go. We're pouring one out for him.
Yeah. Well, we've finally done it. We've read comics, we've slapped comics, and now we've ripped the comic.
That's for you, King Spoet. To mark your passing. Or ripping up a comic. Now this guy's staring at me. Cool art in that Batman, yeah. Rip. Always look on the bright side of life. Now rip a Mr. X.
Oh yeah.
I was thinking about that actually. I was actually thinking about ripping a Mr. X. I was thinking about which Mr. X I should rip.
the one that was harder to get.
They're all pretty easy. Actually, those Mr. X's are probably easier to get than this, even though it's a Batman book. But yeah, like I said, I wanted to rip one I actually liked rather than one. If you didn't see, Scott Connor suggested on our Cavern of Chaos group, which one? X.
No, Youngblood #1.
Youngblood #1. I'm like, I don't know if that would honor anybody ripping off a Youngblood.
Yeah, no. What I do a few years ago, there was a guy advertising a slabbed Brigade #2 on Twitter, and you wanted $89 for it. And so what we should do is we get that slab. You break the slab with a chisel and a hammer, and then use the the bits from the plastic bits from the slab to rip the comic.
There's an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was cool. Glad you liked it. I hope Scott liked it too, wherever he might be. King Spoet in the house. Whee! I haven't ripped up a comic in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Great way to honor his memory. I hope so.
It was that, or we would try to sneak in a dolphin into one of our production things, and that would probably get us fired.
I can also show you when he sent me that G.G. Allen. I'll show this again. He drew this portrait of me with a couple of inside jokes from the show. Furry spawn, dolphin spawn, 2 spawns. So this was the envelope he sent me with G.G. Allen in it, which is, he just sent me this too. And let's see, what's the date on this? I think it was just May. I don't know what the date. Oh, yeah, 5/16/23. This was just mailed. So I was like, wow. It took them fast. Took them fast. Mm-hmm. Did you guys get to read anything this week?
No, unfortunately, I did not get to pick up any comics. And there's at least 3 of them waiting for me at Midtown Comics. So I did not get to go between my regular doctor appointments and just work. I just did not get out of the house at the time I wanted to. And then my appointment for today was canceled, and today would have been the perfect day for it because that got canceled, and instead I started doing something else. And then when I realized, oh, I could go pick up books, I looked at the time and was like, oh, there is no way I'm going to be able to pick up books. Go downtown, pick up books, come back home, get dinner started, and eat before we do the show. So it's like, I'm going to have to miss out the comics today and try to get them either over the weekend or probably on Wednesday and just pick up 2 weeks worth of comics.
I saw you do a TikTok of calling the comic shop to see if your Marvel Legends figure is in.
Yeah, that's one of the because TikTok now has on this day. So it's a little thing that reminds you, this is what you did today on TikTok.
Oh, so that was an older one.
So that's an older one. That was like from my first year or a couple of years ago. That was on the trend of staring at your phone and dialing a number, and then you just say what you're doing on the phone. So that was me trying to figure out TikTok and following a trend. So now I don't even get Marvel Legends from a comic book shop because they're too expensive at a comic book shop.
Yeah,
they're too expensive ordering directly from Hasbro. So now I'm very picky on what I get, and then I try to get them when they're on sale or on clearance because it doesn't take too long for them to go on sale.
To threaten to rip comics is still the way my mother uses to terrorize her grown kids. My neighbor did that when I was younger to her kids. She was also a psychotic drunk too, but that's how she'd discipline her. To say discipline her kids gives it too much forethought. When she'd get mad at her kids, she'd rip up their comics. Which once I lent him a comic or two and they got ripped up too. And I was like, last time that happened. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they used to sometimes tape them. She'd rip them in half and they'd tape them back together. So there were some comics that like, I remember that they'd have a big wad of tape in the middle of them because each page was taped back together with Scotch tape. I never appreciated that much her doing that. Matter of fact, I think there's one Treasury edition I have of theirs that she ripped. That's the one with the... There we go. I think it's This one with the electrical tape on it has some rips in it where I think, no, maybe not this one. Must be another one. There's no rips in this one besides it generally falling apart. Ah, Mrs. Ward. Not a fun household to grow up in.
No, I would imagine not.
Next door.
Do you remember any of the particular comic books themselves? Like,
They
was
would have. No, but Steven liked Spider-Man. Billy liked the Avengers. So it was probably some of those.
Okay.
I mean, she tore a lot of them. So to remember any particular one was nope, I never did. Another cool comic I got this week. Get Out While You Still Can. Dwellings by Jay Stevens. I don't know if you ever heard of this guy. I only know him a little bit from a couple other, I forget the name of the couple other books I have. I think Fantagraphics has published some of his stuff before. But it's pretty interesting in that it's got like this kiddie style, except it's a horror book.
Very Harvey Comics in the way it's designed.
Yeah, very Harvey Comics, except straight up horror, not even like comedy horror, just horror. Like, you know, they introduce characters, you get to know these characters, they're killed in horrible manners, and you're like, ah. But like the first story, the one with the crow on it, was a story about this guy who accidentally kills this mobster. And then these crows start pecking at the mobster. And then you get the idea that the crows follow around people who they know is going to kill someone. So he was like, why are these crows always following me? So he started to get depressed and morose, and he's trying to hide it because this gangster was somebody who threatened him and his mother. And he didn't even kill him on purpose. It was kind of accidentally. But now these crows are following him, waiting for him to kill someone else. So then he kills someone else accidentally. And the crows keep following him. So then he sort of slowly morphs. He slowly goes crazy and morphs into this like serial killer. And just really, but like I said, not comedic at all, just straight up horror. And the second story, there's two, it's a big one too. It's like 60, it was a $10 comic. It's like 64 pages square bound. And then like the second story is about this woman who she's a student, and she stumbles onto this weird conspiratorial cult, and sort of how people keep telling her it doesn't exist, and she gets drawn in closer and closer. And you get to know these people who are telling her, no, it doesn't, and they die, and they keep getting murdered. And it's like, for having Harvey Comics art, it is really serious and really well done. It's got to be 3 issues.
The Jay Stevens, if it's the same Jay Stevens, it seems to be very, very adaptable, because he used to do a Kirby parody.
Oh, okay. I know someone just told me he's been around since the 90s.
Yeah, and I have a story made by him which first came out in a French comic.
Ah.
He did the first intercompany crossover between an American character and the continental European character. An 8-page story starring Nexus and the French monster Wampus.
Ah. King's
and it
Bow
came out
Italy's in our hand.
It came out in the USA in Strangers #2 from Image around 2002.
Okay. I have been doing stuff with Bad Idea Sleepy. They've been doing Kickstarter stuff lately. And lately I've been working on, they've got a couple of like big hardcover Kickstarters coming out. Like one is Hero Trade, which is all the Matt Kint and David Lapham stuff that they've done in various single issues and various B-sides that they've done. So I've been working on some of the stuff for that, and they're also putting out Another big volume that the Kickstarter was like $350,000 on this one. I can't remember. Megalith. That's the name of it. Megalith, who had, I forget the artist's name, someone they've worked with before who's really good. So Bad Idea doesn't have any stuff coming into the comic shops right now, but they're doing some Kickstarter stuff. Mine just threatens. I read a very beautiful European book called Glorious Summers by Zidrow and the artist Jordi Lefebvre. Do you know it? I don't know that one. Do you know it, Paolo?
I don't. But I've heard of them.
Oh, Glorious Summers is great. I thought it only available digitally in English. Okay. Well, I keep losing the Wi-Fi with the storm that just started. That's Dwellings. I saw it in previews. I regret not to solicit it in time. Yeah, pure, cute, black humor. Yes, like I said, it's not even humor. It's straight horror. It's like there's not even like any. It's not even like comedy horror. It's horror. That's what's so interesting about it. Nice chilling in the garage with rain. That does sound like fun. Hero Trade. Yeah, that's what Bill Crabtree mentioned. Yeah, Hero Trade is the one that's coming out. Got pieces of comics sticking to me. But, Dwellings was, like I said, $10 an issue, going to be $3. And it says, instead of the comics code up here, it says, there's a picture of a crow, and it says, definitely not for kids or cowards. And this one I just picked up off the shelf. I never saw it on Final Cutoff. I miss these facsimiles sometimes. But they had a shelf copy. Werewolf by Night 33 is this? So it's the second part to that first Moon Knight story.
Mm-hmm.
Don Perlin art and Doug Minch story. George Russo's coloring. Deborah James lettering. Don't know her.
I don't know that name at all.
No, I don't recognize it. But I figured I've never had this issue, so I figured I'd pick it. Or is this the third one? I thought I had I don't remember. But I've never had this one before, so I figured I'd pick it up and add it to the collection. I enjoy these facsimiles, so what the heck. That looks like Don Perlin and Klaus Janson cover. I'm not 100% sure, but I think so. Klaus's inks are fairly distinctive, but you never know. I've been wrong before. Guido Crepax, cartoonist Morn. I know that name.
He created the character called Valentina.
I'm just looking at Crepax. Just missed his death anniversary. That's what he's saying. Okay. What did he? Oh, that's what
Gore Vidal is a big fan.
Gore Vidal has done videos on him. I actually got some digital versions of those Crepax books that I checked out a little. How about a horror comic about a guy who rips up comics and the pieces keep sticking to him until they finally suffocate him? No. The guilt and shame won't go away. Summoning Gore Vidal. The publisher Europe Comics is publishing Glorious Summer in the U.S. Oh, okay.
I thought they were only doing digital nowadays.
Oh, look at that piece. That needs a little rip.
Europe Comics does a lot of modern stuff that's full of computer coloring that's not very good.
Oh,
I just buy European comics with digital coloring.
I just got an email that a shipment from Clover Press is on its way. Oh. My Kickstarter for the hardcover slipcased Gatsby.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Cool. The Clover Press graphic novel one.
I just funded a Kickstarter book.
A kaiju one?
A kaiju one, yeah. Let's see if I get the name of it.
Dean Haspiel just funded.
What's the name of that book?
What's the name of that book?
And while I'm looking that up, have you guys have a chance at all to see the on HBO, or they call Max now? They have a documentary on the DC comics.
No.
They have, I think, 3 episodes so far, and they jump back and forth of where the comic book company is now, where
Uh-huh.
it began, and they keep jumping back and forth, focusing on the characters, and it's, I think, well done. And what's great about it, and the reason why I'm suggesting it, is because they do show a lot of photographs from that time period of when they first started. And
Ah.
when there even is a section about when Marvel showed up and started their company, and people jumping over to Marvel, there are photos from Marvel at that time as well. So it was
Ah.
and there was even a very quick clip, but they showed some of the bullpen from Marvel, and I know I definitely recognized Herb Trimpe in there, as was it Herb?
In the
Uh,
early
I
70s,
think
that would be Herb.
yes, definitely it was the '70s stuff, and it was kind of really cool to see that. And they're
Yeah.
just talking about how they felt about Marvel at the time, how
Mm-hmm.
DC editorial thought Marvel was doing, that they were going to be a flash in the pan. It was quite interesting to watch uh, with these various interviews, and going back and forth what was going on at the time. And I thought that was really cool, especially showing photographs of what was going on at the time, when they used to be big comic book artist meetings, what it seems
Ah.
like. Or so everyone is dressed up, but apparently that's how they went to work also. The suit and
Yeah.
tie kind of look, where it's like a lot of these guys look like accountants, but they're sitting there drawing comics. So it's very cool to see that kind of background stuff. I've only started the first two. I mean, I saw the first one. I'm in the middle of the second one now, and it's quite interesting. So it was just a nice little touch of what was going on at DC at the time, which is pretty
Cool.
cool.
I'll have to check that out. HBO?
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
on Max. I think it's called um, Superpower the DC Story.
All right. I don't know that one.
Those
Yes,
Marvel
they're
comics are
promoting
ugly.
their
They'll never.
stuff.
Yeah,
What was that, Paulo?
Those Marvel comics are ugly. They'll never get anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one. That was one of the lines. Well, I guess people like ugly comics.
Good. Gloria Summer felt hand colored. It's about the same
Yeah,
family taking summer vacations over the years. Oh,
yeah,
that's
sure.
cool.
The thing about Europe comics is that their catalog is actually with the digital editions is actually quite extensive, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that even though it's made in France, it's got a cal art style or an anime inspired style, and those have those computer colored pastels, and it looks very artificial and very un-European.
Hmm.
But I guess those are cheap, so you have to go through them to get to the good stuff.
Hmm. Something that I got that was really good. My sister picked it off my Amazon list for my birthday. This is Friday, Volume 2 by Ed Brubaker, Marcos Martin, and Munsa Vincente. Writer, artist, colorist. And wow, was this good. I mean, I got Volume 1 of this, hence I got Volume 2. Euro Comics, I miss them, those kiosks. Maybe I wouldn't recognize un-European. I sent a panel on Instagram, Paulo. Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. This actually looks computer colored to me, but sure.
Sorry, Paolo is correct. Europe Comics is all digital since January. That's the same you U.S. kids deserve a taste of our best creators in Europe. Jordan Lefebvre is an amazing artist. This one like I said, I read volume 1, and volume 1 was pretty good, hence I got volume 2. But volume 2 was really good. I mean, the art and story in this is terrific. This is it's sort of, you guys know who Encyclopedia Brown is? When I was a kid, there was a series of books called the Encyclopedia Brown. And he was, a high school kid who solved crimes or solved mysteries. And this story is kind of, what's the guy's name? Lancelot Jones, the Casebook of so Lancelot Jones is the teenage Encyclopedia Brown type character. And this lives in a small town, solves mysteries, helps out the cops, and he's got this teenage girl sidekick who helped him solve the mysteries. She went off to college, and the first volume takes place when she's home from college on a break or something. So she's going to visit her old friend Lancelot Jones. That was the first volume. First volume was good, but this volume was just really good. Now she's kind of on her own trying to solve this mystery, and there's like a supernatural element to it, into the mystery. But the artwork and the storytelling, and especially the color, is just terrific. It's even better when you read it than when you just look at it. I think Marcos Martin is one of these artists that I like to read his work better than just look at. When I just look at his work, it's okay. But when I actually read his work, holy cow, is it good. He just does, his storytelling is just so good. He always picks the right shot and the right angle and the right expression. And the colorist, Munsta Vincente, just sets the mood so well, and she gets such emotion across with the color that I was like this. Like the first volume to me was a B plus, but this volume was an A plus. It was just so good. So if you want to check out Friday, they're only $16 a volume. They're smaller than regular comics. They're that 6x9 manga size, but really, really good stuff. I think they do it digitally too. I think it's one of those digital first things. Oh, that's the one.
The Kickstarter that I had.
The Kickstarter that used to a creature feature graphic novella from indie comic sensation Andrew McLean. Snarlagon.
Snarlagon. So it's a cutesy look artwork to
There's
it.
the link.
And there's the link. And it was like, oh, that popped up on my feed. And it's like, that looks really cool at that. And, kaijus are right up my alley. So I figured, oh, why not give it a try?
McLean did Headlopper. I remember Headlopper. I don't know who did it.
Yes, he did.
Oh, okay.
I had to look it up. I didn't know that off the top of my head, but I
he's
looked
the one who did. Okay, he's the one who did Snarlagon. Also did Headlopper. I remember. I think it was Sleepy buying Headlopper. Yup, I only know him a little from that. Friday looks great indeed. Robinson Crusoe agrees. I wonder if a deluxe Friday is in the offering eventually. I would think so. I mean, they're fairly thin. I think this is 3 issues, it says. Even though no issues come out. Somewhere I saw that this was issues 4 through 6. Being that no issues come out, I don't know how that's possible.
Maybe he was publishing them digitally first?
Yeah, I think so. Collects Friday 4 through 6. Imagecomics.com. Panel Syndicate. Yeah, I think this was a pay whatever you want digital project originally.
Oh, okay.
But this issue just blew me away. I just thought it was so good, this volume. So I highly recommend Friday volume book 2. I recommend book 1 also, but book 2 was even better. Which is good when something gets better.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's good to see that they're publishing and going with it. It was odd because today I read IDW is not doing well.
Oh, they haven't been doing well for a little while.
Mhm. So they just announced that their creator-owned project is halted, and the
all of them?
creator-owned, from what I understand, they're going to concentrate on their, the big name books that are making money, which is Star Trek and I think Ninja Turtles.
I was
Those core
surprised when they
titles.
announced that creator-owned line because it was like I think they did that after they just laid off everybody. But don't worry. I think isn't that the one that I read a news thing about a couple months ago where I said, "But don't worry, the boss's son is going to turn it around."
I did not read that, but that's a great line. All right, the boss's
Because
son is
I
going to
think
turn it.
the owner it got bought up by someone and it's like a family owned hedge fund or something, and the son got put in charge of IDW. I was like, ooh, that fills me with confidence. He got his job because of his dad. He knows exactly what he's doing.
And it's in publishing, so
yeah.
Oh.
From Panel Syndicate. Oh, Brian K. Vaughan's digital thing. Oh, okay. Good thing Usagi left IDW. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing, isn't it? My screw-up son is not working for the family business. I'm going to give him a publishing company.
Yeah.
How hard can it be?
They just publish comic books.
Yeah. That should be easy to do. It's just comics.
If something is licensed, was those type of core titles then become online only, digital for each issue, and then compile all online? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what their plan is, but see, the problem with going just trade paperback is your trade paperbacks are no longer subsidized by the individual issues. So you can't put out a $16 trade paperback if it's all not subsidized by you have to put out a $32 trade paperback.
Yeah, only if your digital subscription service is profitable enough.
Yeah, right.
But we never know if it is.
Right.
They never release any numbers. We have no idea how many people subscribe to online comics.
If it was profitable enough, then you're right. The trades could be subsidized by digital, but we don't know. But that's why when always people say, "Oh, they should stop publishing comics. They should just publish collected editions." It's always like, well, your collected editions are going to be too expensive for you now.
Well, in the rest of the world, you can't even publish individual comics anymore because you don't have newsstands.
Right.
The newsstands won't carry comics like that.
They don't exist. By the way, being that my shop, I was like a week behind on Image Comics. Finally caught up this week and had 2 weeks worth of Diamond stuff. Except I didn't get 3 of the books I was supposed to get because they all came in damaged. Junk Rabbit number 5, the last issue, they have to get a new copy of. Hey Kids Comics number 5, the second to last issue, came in damaged, and the latest issue of Spawn came in damaged. So you won't see those in my pile this week because I got to wait for undamaged copies. Huh. Just like Atlas Seaboard. What?
Well, the problem there is not because the publisher's son was in charge. The problem was they didn't have access to distribution.
Indie in the USA will end up print, but the Corp stuff will mainly be online. More ROI to track the login activity. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you put up if you do an indie comic and put it up online, you have to do it for free, and nobody's going to pay for it.
Right.
Sight unseen.
Marcos Martin is part of a very interesting generation of Spanish authors. Pepe Larraz and Guillaume March are part of that group too. Just good art from those three. I don't know Pepe Larraz.
Pepe Larraz was doing the X-Men in Krakoa. But he hasn't.
Polito too.
Javier Polito is a bit older, isn't he?
Oh, hold on. I didn't rip up the UPC. King Spo would probably appreciate it. Ripping up the UPC.
Don't you need the UPC to make it a returnable book? Return to cover, maybe you get credit.
Dear DC, my book arrived damaged. Another book I got this week, Damn Them All, is back. By the unsung hero of comics, Charlie Adlard.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one that I best describe it is it's John Constantine's niece, who was involved with magic stuff in London. This is the beginning of the second story arc. Simon Spurrier is the writer. Charlie Adlard is doing a bang-up job on the art. And it's if you like sort of John Constantine-ish comics, this is it. I enjoyed the first story arc. I'm sure I'm enjoying this one. And of course, it was Charlie Adlard who got me to buy it. I call him the unsung hero of comics because he did all those issues of Walking Dead on time, sometimes faster, and nobody ever mentions his name when they talk about The Walking Dead. I find that amazing. Pepe Larraz worked on Hickman's House of X mini relaunch a few years ago. Great artist.
And then he did the first year of comics in Krakoa.
Ooh. Pepe Larraz worked on, I put that one. Hey, Constantine is a female ancestor in Sandman.
Yep.
The only Sandman thing I really read was that Lock and Key Sandman. I enjoyed that. And everybody on here had to explain to me who all the Sandman characters were. As I was showing it off. But that also just reminded me, I still don't have... I was supposed to get it, I think, 3 or 4 weeks ago now. They put out a 10th anniversary edition of Lock and Key #1. Not quite a facsimile, but a reprint of Lock and Key #1 with some new stuff in the back too. I got it just for the heck of it. I like Lock and Key, but it's still lost at Roy's house, my LCS owner, because, and I think I told the beginning of this story. They sent it to him a week early, and you're not allowed to sell this comics until their sell-on date. Mm-hmm. And he only got like 3 copies of it in the show, one for me and one for 2 other people. But then, since it was sitting around the shop for a week, he ended up taking it home. Because what he does sometimes is comics that don't sell, he brings home and packages them or whatever, sells them where. Sometimes he'll like package them or do whatever at home, and then bring them back in the store or mail them out, whatever. Sometimes he just brings them home and they get Raiders of the Lost Ark. So he's like, oh, crap, I brought that. And he forgot to bring it back the next week. So then we're making fun of him for not bringing it back. And then he's been on vacation for the last 2 weeks, and he forgot to bring it back this week. So we're like, do you know where it is? He's like, I think I do. So maybe I'll be getting that one when he finds it.
I think I know where that is.
Polito's too old? He's literally 2 months older than Martin. Ah.
Yeah, I think Polito arrived in the U.S. market before Martin, and that may be why I thought it'd be older. But yeah, sure, of course.
Pepe Larraz is doing the new mega event from Miller Comics, Big Game. Oh, okay. That's the one I skipped. I picked it up and it didn't really grab me. And sometimes I pick up those Miller comics, sometimes I don't. I think that falls under the same generation, probably.
Yeah, the thing is, these guys have careers in Spain before they arrived in the U.S. market. Polito arrived first, so that's why I think.
You thought the other guy was new.
Yeah, but sure, no problem.
Just started Quest for the Elements Swamp Thing story. Better be worth reading about these talking salamanders. Know what I'm saying? Just got the first issue. Swamp Thing rocks. Okay. I haven't read Swamp Thing regularly since just after the Alan Moore day. I was lucky enough to be on board for the Alan Moore days. And I stayed around for the Rick Veitch days and then left after that. But my complaint about Swamp Thing, as we've discussed on here before, I think I forget who it was who said it best, is Swamp Thing got turned into Green Lantern. There's now all these different Green Lantern, because everybody's the living embodiment of everything, and there's the Parliament of Trees. So that kind of turned me off from Swamp Thing.
Yeah, you know what? We actually need the living embodiment of living embodiments.
Yes, I am Miller covers had me. Ian Miller. Big Game, baby. Polito's Robin year 1 is also stellar. Okay. Yeah, no problem. Just clarifying.
The living embodiment of living embodiments. And it would be Mike Carlin.
Yeah. Quit accusing Paulo of being stupid, okay?
Nobody's accusing me of being stupid. No. I get it. Sometimes these guys arrive like when Carlos Pacheco became famous. People had no idea how old he actually was because and I've seen the original covers he did for Comics Forum in Spain for when they reprinted the Steve Englehart run in the Avengers, the one with the time travel story where they go to the Old West, and those covers are very, very good. They don't look like Pacheco, but he did these like 5 years before he made it big in X-Men, even before he was doing Dark Guard at Marvel UK.
Yeah. R.I.P. Pacheco. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, we'll never get to see Arrowsmith Volume 2.5, whatever it was named.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Pacheco once gave me I had set up with we had a convention in Lisbon in 2003, 2 or 3. Somehow we managed to get Neil Gaiman for it because the book publisher teamed up with the comics publishers. Palmiotti was here, Neil Gaiman was here, and Carlos Pacheco is from Spain, just come over. And I set up an interview, and then the guy, let me just go to the bathroom, and he comes out of the bathroom. I'm going to have to cancel the interview. My wife asked me to take care of something for her. Sure, okay. No interview. Then a few years later, I find that I go to Ireland specifically for a comics convention. I got a cheap flight in the cheap hotel, and I went there. I sat down with him. I record the interview. The thing is, it's in one of my old tapes, and I have no idea where it is.
Wow.
So I never published it. So it's sitting there. I did Pacheco and I did Braithwaite.
Ah, cool.
And I guess that the convention was in a hotel, so Pacheco was more amenable. We sat down, we did the interview in Spanish, and Doug Braithwaite was very, very nice. He had just come off of doing Paradise X, and we talked a lot about that. I told him how much he had improved during Paradise X from previous things I'd read from him, like the Punisher kills the Marvel Universe. Man, that thing is bad. It's like, have you ever seen Brian Hitch's first work at Marvel UK? That
No.
was terrible. That was terrible. It doesn't look like Brian Hitch. And Doug Braithwaite in Punisher Kills the Marvel Universe doesn't look like Doug Braithwaite. And there's other stuff. I mean, Jay Lee in X Factor was terrible.
Yeah.
Jay Lee.
I remember, I think it was in an issue of Marvel Age.
Mhm.
Who was it? Carl, what's his name? Chris Bacalo showed some of his early samples that he did to send to Marvel or whoever, and holy cow, are they bad? And he knew that. I mean, he didn't mind. They look. You wouldn't have been able to tell they were from Chris Bacalo.
Yeah.
It was just like, woo.
No. Yeah, the Joe Madureira's first story, the one from Marvel Comics Presents, it was used as a filler in the Brazilian editions, and I've read it, the one featuring North Star. It doesn't look like Joe Madureira at all. It looks very bland. Doesn't.
Yeah, I always
personality
wondered. Like I said, I was there when Joe Madureira was an intern. He used to sit next to me, and over the years, I saw a lot of talented people come and go through Marvel. He was talented for, I think he was 16 at the time. He was a talented 16-year-old. But what made Bob Harris take him under his wing, I'll never know. Because I was kind of like, I saw many people equally as talented as him. Maybe not at 16. Maybe they were 19 or 20. But it's like, but I said nobody's first story is great. But it's like, I always to this day wonder what it was about him that Bob Harris said, yeah, this guy I'll take under my wing, as opposed to every other one who went through there. I don't know.
I guess he was right that time.
Yeah.
Probably saw the potential. There's this thing with comics is that you could only get good with comics if you're actually working on comics.
Yeah.
And I think that he might have been something as simple as he probably gave him an assignment and he turned it in on time. And
no, he gave him an assignment when he was an intern.
Right.
When he was a 6 or maybe even 17 by that time. That never happened. If you were a talented person coming into Marvel and you wanted to draw for the X-Men, you would have kissed Bob Harris's ass. And it took you ages to get one of those X-Men books. Why he was like, this kid, we're going to give him some X-Men stuff. It was just so, I never saw it before. I never saw it after.
Right.
What about the Len Wein, Bernie Wrightson Swamp Thing? Is it better than Alan Moore's run? I don't think so. I'm actually not a fan of the Len Wein, Bernie Wrightson Swamp Thing. I mean, it's good Bernie Wrightson art, but I didn't really. It was a little before my time. I didn't probably read it till I was in high school or college, and it didn't blow me away like the Alan Moore.
There's a definite cultural divide between the two. Len Wein is typical 70s horror fan. Fair.
Right.
And Alan Moore is Alan Moore.
Yes. Like, I think I only read the Bernie Wrightson one, mainly because it was Bernie Wrightson, and it was a reprint of the first issue. So of when he was on it. So I don't think I ever looked up the run to even say how good it was. Because
I have the trade with the first. Yeah, I have to trade with the first 8 issues. I mean, 70s horror was never my thing. I guess they did okay. The characters are interesting, but
it's better than your average 1970s DC comic.
Sure,
I'll give it that. But I don't know if it's gonna. If you were to ask me my top 100 comics of all time, I don't know if it would make it in it. But Alan Moore, Tolobin Bissett stuff definitely would. Rick Veitch, whoever else was working with him. That stuff definitely would make it in. my top 100 wherever it might fall. So yeah, there's definitely. I think a matter of fact, who drew it after Wrightson, was it Nestor Redondo?
Don't
Don't
know.
know.
I did not read those.
They were as nicely drawn as the Wrightson stuff. I mean, that was really some well drawn stuff. But still, it was 70s DC. To call it horror is a stretch. But, for what passes as 70s DC horror. Love early Mad, especially heavily art influenced. Pre manga. Oh, he's Joe Madureira.
Oh, Madureira.
Love early, especially heavily art influenced there. Okay. Yeah, I'm told by Joe Madureira fans there's like the pre-manga influenced Madureira and the post-manga influenced Madureira. His stuff on Excalibur is fun. They were like, you have to wait until you ruin this. Someone else is there now. Find that tape and let's publish the interview in a fanzine.
Mm-hmm. Finding tapes nowadays.
Also, my S-Tech Wars epic hitch stuff.
Yeah, Miss Tech Wars. It was a mini series from Marvel UK. They have like 50 characters, 50 Marvel heroes in there, all tripping on each other, and it's a terrible story. Brian Hitch's art, I mean, it's very uninspired. It doesn't even save the story compared to his later Stormwatch.
Yeah, great Madureira stories in Marvel Comics Presents, especially for a 16-year-old. I can remember Joe Madureira too asking people in the bullpen if he should go to college or try to draw comics. We were all like, none of us thought that he would be getting regular work in the X-Men office. We were like, go to college. Why not? If you have a chance to. But he didn't, because he was getting regular X-Men work. It was like, none of us saw that coming. Even when Bob Harris took a little interest in him and his work, none of us saw it coming that he would be getting regular work like that quickly. Because it didn't happen besides him. Somebody told me Bernie's run is great in black and white edition just because of his art. Yeah, his art is terrific. If you're going to read the Bernie Wrightson Swamp Things, read them because of the Bernie Wrightson art. The stories are just okay. Nothing grand. The Alan Moore, Tottlebin, Veitch, Bissett stuff, I think is just as head and shoulders above the 70s stuff. Joe Mad, he's like street art. Yeah, that's post-manga, Joe Mad. Blasphemy Mistex Warriors is so good, Paulo.
Yeah. Mistake Wars and Rob Liefeld's Doom 4.
I keep reading Anatomy Lesson often. The story's climax is at the first page. It's great. The best moment when it's ripping up another piece here or there. The best moment when I was like, whoa, there's something special happening here in the Alan Moore stories. A few issues in. First of all, it was good to begin with. The Alan Moore stuff. But the initial story is Arcane, his longtime villain, becomes this demon or something. And he kills Abby. And there's this one moment where Swamp Thing picks up Abby, and I think it was at the end of the issue. And he looks over at her and looks over at Arcane and says, "How long has she been dead?" And I think that's how the story ended that issue. But that moment, you were like, gave you chills. And then the next issue to top that was just Arcane, who looks like beautifully drawn. It's like this zombie with flies around him. And Swamp Thing is like, Abby's dead in his arms, and Swamp Thing is just like walking with her. And Arcane is just taunting him. Got all these demons flying around him. And he's taunting him by saying, not only did I kill Abby, I sent her soul to hell. So not only is your girlfriend dead, her soul's in hell. Ha ha ha. And Swamp Thing is just not saying anything. He's just walking with Abby until he gets to the swamp. And he goes into the swamp, and Arcane's still taunting him. And Swamp Thing just turns around and says, "You should not have come here." And just proceeds to kick Arcane's ass because he's in the swamp. And all of a sudden you realize this ain't the old Swamp Thing anymore. Something's going on here. And that was the moment I was like, whoa, this Alan Moore guy is good. It was that was my intro. I think it came like it's in that first trade paperback, but it was that moment was I think 2 or 3 issues in, but that's when I went, whoa, because it just gave you chills when he turned around and said, "You should not have come here." And I think the anatomy lesson was the first issue of that story. A lot of people like the anatomy lesson. I think I liked the stuff a little later on better. The anatomy lesson was different, though. The neon colors of all those 90s Marvel UK books are incredible.
Yes, and when if people tell you that Marvel needed to buy Malibu for their computer coloring department, no, they didn't, because Marvel had Marvel UK. If they hadn't shut down the UK offices, they could have colored the Marvel comics, and they would be better than the US.
That was just their cover story they gave us. We were wondering what was going on too, because they actually told us that in the Marvel bullpen that they bought Malibu for their coloring department, and we just went, "What? What? Their coloring department is a bunch of 20-year-olds in Photoshop. We already got that." So it was very confusing. And then they ended up not using them a whole lot. It didn't come out until years later. That was a cover story. They really bought Malibu because DC was in talks to buy them. And that would have made DC's market share bigger than Marvel's if they had bought Malibu at that time.
But I do remember some comics colored by Malibu.
Yeah, there were some. But it's not like they gave up all their freelance colorists who were just people working in Photoshop like Malibu. Paul Nassa. And then sell the tape to Daniel Henrique, Robin 2 inker. He's a huge Pacheco fan.
I think it may be in MP3, and I'm luckily I haven't thrown away my last 3 computers.
Yeah.
So it may be in one of them, but I'll have to take out the hard drives and see if they still work, because it may be in one of them.
Frankenstein Alive was really good. I got that one too. That was Bernie Wrightson showing us all he was still Bernie Wrightson. Shadow Riders, anyone?
Yeah, a friend of mine had an issue of Super Soldiers.
Super Soldiers. To be fair, Ms. Tech Wars couldn't hold a torch to Danny Lightfield's oeuvre. So there was a Creature from the Black Lagoon movie last year. Anyone see it? Precursor? No, I didn't even know there was a new one. But I don't pay much attention to those Universal monsters. Didn't Art Adams do a Creature from the Black Lagoon comic that everybody mentions that I've never seen?
It's very good.
Yeah.
From what I remember. Okay, I'm going by 25 years ago memory. I loved it. It was, because it's Art Adams being Art Adams. So adapting the Creature from the Black Lagoon story. Dark Horse, I want to say, was the publisher. And there's a trade paperback of it, and it's really good. I remember it. That was fun. That was fun because it was a good story. And Art Adams. So he can do monsters quite well.
Speaking of both Liefeld and Bleeding Edge coloring, X-Force number 3 is a gem. I'll have to take your word for it.
Yeah.
Color it.
No, I've never read X-Force number 3 in English. I only have the translated edition. So, and the local publisher would, since they got the art in black and white, they would correct coloring mistakes if they spotted them.
Another comic I got this week is Grimm number 12. And I got to say, I've lost track of the characters in this book. because it originally started out as this one character who was Grims are they're Grim Reapers, and there's a bunch of them in the afterlife. Then all of a sudden, this stopped. The stuff happened in the afterlife, all this political stuff, people lived on. But our lead character was this woman who was a Grim Reaper. And now by this point, we've got at least three women lead characters, and I've lost track of who they all are. I still know the green, the original one, but we've got this one who looks like Rosie the Riveter. She's got that. I forget what she's another afterlife character. I think she was helping her out, but then betrayed her. And we've got this blonde character now who I've completely forgotten. It's like I remember her storyline and what's been going on, but I can't actually remember which. It's like there's now one storyline going on with each of these three characters, and I remember the storylines, but I can't remember who the characters are. I'm like, who is this blonde woman again? Why is life tempting her? I have no idea. I'll have to go back, but the artwork is really good in this. Who's doing the art? Flaviano, whoever that is. The artwork is just terrific in it. So that's why I've been enjoying that one. Oh, and speaking of terrific artwork, the Parker Girls, number 9 of 10. And it's Terry Moore, so of course it's good. But this story took an interesting twist in this issue, because this whole thing, this whole plot has been like they've been planning on and trying to and plotting to take down this billionaire guy who killed one of the Parker girls. And they're like, well, that's not going to stand. We got to kill this guy. And there's all sort of machinations and plots going on. But in this issue, the next to last issue, the billionaire just solved global warming. Something to do with satellites and this and that and this and that. And they're like, oh, that kind of ruins our plan to murder him. But the way he solved global warming, he also just got every government in the world mad at him too. So they're like, well, now they're going to be lining up to kill this guy. So it's an interesting twist in the second to last issue, because that was kind of a straightforward, we're going to murder this guy eventually plot so far. Now they're like, oh, there's a twist. We can't just outright murder him now due to stuff. But Terry Moore is always good. Do you ever get Terry Moore stuff over there, Paulo?
Not in Portuguese. I have yet to read any Strangers in Paradise.
Okay. I'd actually recommend his stuff after Strangers in Paradise first. Because the Strangers in Paradise stuff is so sort of slice of life long. A lot of it, I mean, there's plots that go on, but it's real. The main plot is between Kachu and Francine in their sort of relationship. And it's mostly slice of life stuff. But stuff like Rachel Rising has a real horror plot. Stuff like Echo has a real sci-fi plot. So that stuff might be easier to read first than Strangers in Paradise. Not that I didn't read Strangers in Paradise first, but I'm just talking like your average comic book fan might have an easier time jumping on to Rachel Rising. Mm-hmm.
I could agree on that, because it's like I enjoyed immensely Strangers in Paradise, but it was a long burn of just like I said, slice of life. It helped that it was so beautifully drawn.
Yes,
that you get pulled into it, and the story as well, but don't expect any high speed chases.
Yeah,
it was more of like, this was, for me, it was a nice read after reading all the comic book superhero stuff. and then you read that, and it's like a palate cleanser. It's like, oh,
Well,
this is
that
something to read and
Strangers in
enjoy
Paradise
for
is
you.
about the relationships between the characters
Right.
more than it is about any plot.
Hmm.
There are plots,
Right.
but seek ye scans and quarter bins for a copy because X-Force #3 is a truly accidental masterpiece. I am going to have to. I only read some Rachel Rising and love it. Yeah, that's a good one. I've only ever seen the Jarmusch fillet. You're not joking. A lot of D movies in the 80s were trash. Rachel Rising and Echo are my favorites. Like I said, I think those are the easiest ones for people to pick up on. I also picked up the first issue of Conan the Barbarian, #1 Heroic Comics. And I don't know if you watched my pull list haul, but I got really annoyed at this when I wanted to look up who the creators were, and they're not on the cover. And you open up to the first page, and they put their masthead as the splash page. The masthead that doesn't even have the creators on it. I just was like, that. I'm like, what idiot company puts their masthead as the splash page of a comic? That's just dumb. I'm sorry. That's just saying we're more important than the splash page. And I had to turn 2 more pages to get to. It's by Jim Zub and Rob De La Torre is the artist. Jose Villarrubia is the colorist, and Richard Starkings is the letterer. And this is this guy who draws like John Buscema, but it's kind of inked like Joe Kubert. I mean, it's nicely done, but it's very Buscema and Kubert. And I think they're telling untold Conan stories, sort of thing, because they mention somewhere in here. Where does it say? Somewhere in here it says, "Oh, there was tales of Conan's youth. Oh, there was tales of Conan's adulthood. This is like the in between." Somewhere here, it explains exactly when these take place, and I think it's like they're not adapting anything. They're telling their own Conan stories when he was about 24 or something like that. So it's not the young Conan stories. It's not the middle-aged Conan stories. They got their own thing going on. But it was a good first issue. Since this one was late, I had to order the second issue before I read the first issue. So I got the second issue coming too. But it was solid. I don't know if I'm going to put it on my pull list, but it's solid.
Who's publishing that?
Titan Books.
Okay.
Right? It says Heroic Age. Yeah, Titan Comics. But like Heroic Age or Heroic Signature is the imprint. Yeah, Heroic Signatures, and then Titan Comics. So I guess Heroic Signatures is doing it for Titan Comics. I don't know what kind of crazy relationship they got. But it looks like they're coming out with another version of the new versions of the omnibuses too. I would only get that Savage Sword one if it was magazine size. Unless someone wants to gift it to me, I'd get it then too. I also got the new Jacob Phillips book, Sean Phillips' son, The Enfield Gang Massacre. Jacob Phillips is the artist. He's Sean Phillips' son, the guy who does all that stuff with Brubaker. And Chris Condon is the writer. And they did a book called That Texas Blood that's got 20 issues out so far, which is a modern day tale of a Texas lawman. So they decided to do this 6-issue mini of like an old Texas story. The paper on it is really interesting. It's got this sort of yellow textured paper. Well, where's one that's not full bleed? It's this matte paper I don't even think that yellow's printed on it. That's the color of the paper. And it's got a lot, it's very lightweight. And it's very light, but not thin. And it's got a very textured feel to it. I don't think I've ever seen a comic sort of with this paper before. It's kind of, I think that they're trying for an old timey pulp thing to it. And I think they got it. I think that's they got what they're aiming for with this old timey Western pulp paper. $1,000 reward. I think it's only a 24 pager too. It feels very light. And I don't think there are any ad pages in it. Ooh, look at that cute little old lady. Let's rip her up. That's for you, Kinks Poet. Let's see, what other comics did I get this week? A few things left. Swan Songs. And this is the one, what's his name? W. Maxwell Prince is the writer. He's the Ice Cream Man guy. And every issue has a different artist. This issue's artist is Casper Wingard, or however you say his name. That's how I've been saying his name, but it's Wingard. And the reason it's called Swan Songs is it's about endings. I think the first issue was like the end of the world, maybe. I can't remember. This issue is about the end of a marriage. But it's really weird. This couple is divorcing, but then it says part of their divorce proceedings are they're locked in eternal struggle. And then we get pages of them fighting like as knights. I think this is all metaphor. Here they are as samurai fighting. So we get the story. We get the story of their meeting and their romance. And then we get the story of them drifting apart. And then we get the story of their ending. And in between those, we get the story of their internal struggle as different types of warriors. Oh, here they are as Jack Kirby warriors. Let me show you this big. May as well. Here they are as Jack Kirby type warriors. They even mention Kirby. So they're fighting as those type of superheroes. I think this is the apples and oranges page, except it's like avocado. Oh, it's avocados and apples. Because they don't even remember their meet cute the same way. Because they met in a supermarket. And he remembers her buying avocado. He remembers her buying apples, and she remembers that as avocados. And that's like a sticking point throughout the story. And it was well done. It just didn't offer me any insight. It's kind of no different than any other. We met, we fell in love, we had a couple good years of marriage, we drifted apart, we divorced story. I mean, admittedly, that's not stories you read in comics very often. So there's not a lot of comics like it, but the story itself was kind of, there was no, he didn't seem to have any special insight into why these couple got together and broke up. They just did. It just happened. He gave us some reasons, but the reasons weren't particularly insightful. The dude didn't have a good enough job. That's not particularly insightful. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I was taking a look at a scan of X-Force number 3.
Yeah.
Well, the coloring's not good, but it's not as bad as number 4. Now, number 4 is an exercise in how to not color a comic.
Who colored them?
I think Joe Rosas. I think, yeah, everything. Yeah, Let me check. Number 4 is also Joe Rosas.
Wow, he was like the in-demand colorist in those days too. So.
Okay.
Was that Liefeld too? I don't even remember.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah,
so. That should have
he was
been.
X-Force, right?
Yeah.
No, issue number 3 was Joe Rosas, but issue number 4 is somebody called Brian Murray.
Okay.
Oh, okay, this one has some very interesting coloring choices. No, seriously, Cable's armor makes absolutely no sense.
It didn't have to make sense. It just had to be shiny.
Yeah, I guess. No, really, this is. I'm surprised anyone can understand anything that was going on here. And remember, this was a crossover with Spider-Man number 16, which is probably one of Todd McFarlane's worst comics ever.
What did the artwork in that new Opus comic Fire and Ice? I think it's from Opus. Yeah. Who did it? I don't remember. I didn't. That was another one that got damaged, but I don't think I even put the first issue on my pull list. I don't remember why. So I can't really judge it because I don't remember it at all. Yeah, I saw it. Will you rip that Conan too? No, I don't think so. Unless another one of my homies dies. We'll have to see. Yeah, wow, that's eerily Buscema-like. It really is. Leonardo Manco. Frazetta versus comic Fire and Ice. Yeah, I think that they've been doing Opus has been doing a good job with the Frazetta verse. I've liked a lot of their stuff. I've liked Mothman. I've liked Dawn Attack. I've liked Death Dealer. But I think I don't think I put Fire and Ice on my pull list. Maybe if they get the undamaged ones back and I have an extra $5 that week. The thing that like puts me off on more of those Frazetta books is the $5 price tag. Leonardo Manco of Archangel fame. I don't know what we'd be talking. C. Okay, they've been talking. I like the paper stock with a healthy tooth. Well, that Enfield Gang Massacre is probably the most tooth I've seen. I could never stand a comic book with a photo as a cover. We left them at the beach or the park. It was okay to litter in the 70s. I don't think I had one. I don't think that that Enfield Gang wasn't a photo, right? Yeah, that was art, not a photo. So if you thought that was a photo, it is not. That is Jacob Phillips art. Swan Song number 2 is so far my favorite floppy this year, hands down. Okay. That's nice. Like I said, I liked it too. I just wish I had a little more insight in it, but it was well done. Not that faux age bullshit Ed Volpini was pulling with his X-Men fanfic. No. I don't like that. I don't like when they, like I said, I have got Hip Hop Family Tree, the hardcover box set, and I can't read it. It just makes me so mad to even think about it because he made it so faux old that the lettering is tough to read. And I'm just like, I can't, and it's hard. Oh man, it drives me crazy. Brian Murray. Number 4. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Number 4 is the one. Now you see the beauty, the grandeur.
Yes. I was trying to
Murray
see if
apparently
I could...
just made a horrendous mistake and the editors were asleep at the wheel.
It's not letting me share it. I was trying to share the screen.
If you think the editors knew a lot about color, they didn't. Yeah, there are too many ads. I passed on Fire and Ice for $5, but the price is going to break comic shop. I mean, shops just have to reply to back issues. Then I $5 is just. I just didn't want to buy, even though I've liked them. I just didn't want to buy another $5 Opus for Zetaverse book. Hip Hop Family Tree is a disgrace to hip hop. I read a lot of it as digital before it was in print, and I really liked it. I just can't read the printed version because it was so terribly printed on purpose. It's supposed to look like an old comic, but old comics you could read. Still trying to share, Paulo?
Yeah, I'm going to try and open through with Image Blast because I know I'm used to sharing from
Image Blast.
Why is there Sunday?
Meanwhile, I'll sit here tearing up little pieces of comic. You know what? When our live stream is done, maybe sometime this weekend, I'll cut out that part of ripping up the comic and post it by itself as a farewell to King's Poet on my channel.
It doesn't actually let me share screen at all. I don't know why.
Well, that's strange.
Let me get out and get back in because that sometimes helps.
Let's see.
Yeah, if you just post the shredding of the comic with no reason whatsoever, you just start shredding, post it on all social media. Everyone's gonna want to find out what's going on.
Okay.
This is what I did this week. Just start tearing up the book.
Rip.
Is it working?
I'm going to start doing fake ones. Let's see.
Behold.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Now check out the next page. That armor looks.
There's that armor you were talking about. Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah. No.
Talk about just get it done art.
And what is this? I don't know.
Wow.
Cinematic masterpiece, man. You don't see it? You don't see why he chose those colors?
This is X-Force number 4?
Yes.
You're not wearing your black light glasses.
I'm going to put that on my want list.
That was amazing. I have no idea what was going on there.
Everyone, your homework for next week is to locate and pour over a copy of X-Force number 4. Stunning. Wow.
Yeah, we're gonna have let's buy 3 copies of X-Force number 4, and then we'll have a real life read, rip, and slab. And we will slab an X-Force number 4, read an X-Force number 4, and rip an X-Force number 4. Still undecided on what to do with the flamingos.
You gotta get little plastic flamingos and have it slabbed with the copy of the book, so they float around in the
rip X-Force number 4 with the flamingos. Let's rig something up to do that. Let's see, another thing I got, Love Everlasting. This is our one with the woman who's stuck in a romance comic. And and it used to be she jumped from romance comic to romance comic. I don't know if this is like the 4th issue of her being stuck in this one romance comic in 1963. But but in this one, she was trying to get out of it. So she was like, crap, how do I get out of this? I can't get out. And if she tries to run away, this cowboy shows up and kills her. So she tried running away. The cowboy wouldn't kill her this time. He's like, get back there. So she ends up marrying this guy. She lives her whole life with him, has kids. That's been the last few issues. Last issue, that her husband finally died. And, her kids and grandkids are at the funeral, and she has to say something. And she's like, whatever, I never really loved him anyway. So in this issue, she's living her life after her husband is dead. And her kids, she eventually gets so old that her kids put her in a nursing home or an old age or retirement home. And she meets this guy and she falls in love with this guy. The guy's like, I love you. And she's like, you know what? I think I love you too. And she's off to the next romance comic. As soon as she falls in love, she's off to the next romance comic. So then the back half of it is her going, oh, crap. I'm in another story. What happened is like as soon as I fell in love with that guy. So in this one, she's all of a sudden finds herself by the way, the art in this is terrific as ever by what's her name? Charretier. This one is about this artist, this sculptor who's sculpting her in stone because he's in love with her. And she's just like, crap, you're in love with me. So she ends up just murdering this guy, murdering the sculptor with his own hammer. And she's like, I don't care anymore. I don't care. So she's like, I don't care what you do. So then the cowboy shows up. The cowboy shows up to kill her. And she's like, get on with it. I'm really looking forward to seeing what's around next time. So she finally got out of that 4-issue story she was in. And now she's just pissed.
That's
and
amazing.
Murders the next guy who's in love with her. This
is amazing.
I'm really, and it's really Tom King is writing it, and Elsa Charretier is the artist. Matt Hollingsworth is the colorist. Clayton Cowles is the letterer, and it's just terrific. I've just been enjoying this one all the way. I've never seen anything by Elsa Charretier before, but this is my favorite thing Tom King has written. I can't say I haven't been that impressed with his stuff before this. I'm enjoying this one thoroughly.
Tom King has only one good comic. It's the Batman crossover with the Looney Tunes. Elmer, Batman Elmer Fudd. It's the only good thing he's got. Everything else starts interesting, and then he completely craps all over it.
Extreme, said the colorist, and then got paid. I wonder if the colorist was some guy at Liefeld's studio. I wonder if he oversaw that color.
Probably.
I would think so.
That that he probably was running late with the book because it's the next book, so they're always running late.
Number 3 had some very rushed art, and Joe Rosas was using a lot of blue on Black Tom Cassidy's beard because all of the art was all scratchy and not complete. I don't think Liefeld inked some of the pages beyond some scratches. So by number 4, I guess let's make sure this is done in house. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
If it was for color to be that garish, I think Liefeld would have to approve it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure he liked the extremeness. Do you still have the Portuguese version of X-Force, Paulo? The colors were even worse on our paper.
They were, which is the funny thing is that although the Brazilians usually try to fix coloring mistakes, when it comes to Liefeld artwork, I don't think they knew where to start. So how it came colored from the US, they redid because they got the art in black and white, so they had to redo the colors. And it actually came from the Brazilian studios. The Portuguese publisher at the time was printing the stuff in Portugal, but using the proofs from Brazil. So it was the Brazilian studios who colored it, and they colored it exactly as the US version. I don't think they really cared what was there.
Huh. So Murray just made a numerical error. He went one number over when selecting color values, and nobody said anything. It was plausible enough for Liefeld verisimilitude. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think Liefeld probably liked the weirdness of it, I would imagine.
No, I bet Brian Murray had a T-shirt that said, "My color palette goes to 11."
Don't eat flamingos. By the way, I bet flamingos taste like shit, or they would have been extinct by now. PT, from what he said earlier, sounds like those coloring mistakes may have been corrected because the black and white art was received first. But I'm curious as well. I think for art to be that weird and extreme, Liefeld probably wanted it that way. He was looking for that. He was looking for over the top. My 8-year-old just said challenge is accepted to your homework assignment. Finding that X-Force 4. Chartier's done some great work on some Star Wars stuff for IDW. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Brian Murray was hired off his coloring mistakes for what would become Extreme Studios. I believe Elsa did an Ant-Man or Wasp in 2016. Okay, some more stuff from her. King's Vision was pretty good, though mainly on the strength of Walter's art. Okay, yeah, I've heard good things about his vision. But I never bothered to check it out because, I don't know, it just didn't seem to interest me. Androids fitting into society or something. Okay. In Marvel's world where they got mutants and superheroes, I wouldn't think it was that big a deal for androids. And let's see, the last thing I got this week, Jordan Thomas and Shaky Kane's weird work. I think this is just a 5-issue mini. It's got Shaky Kane's weird art. And there's a nice big-headed guy. And if I have one criticism of this, it would be that it just wasn't weird enough for me. That's cool. Despite all this weird art, the writing is just so straightforward police procedural that I found it a little dull at times. It was just, I mean, there's lots of cool art to like, especially just flipping through, looking at it now. There is lots of cool art to look at. But the story was just kind of like, cops and robbers, police procedural. He's looking for the villain. Okay. It wasn't terrible. I don't know if I've ever read anything by Jordan Thomas before. But it was definitely the Shaky Kane art. Oh, yawn. That brought me to this. And the Shaky Kane art that's keeping me with this. Because it's not the riveting story. Because it's not riveting. What are we? I'm a fan of Gabriel Handa's Walter in general. Yeah, I don't really know his stuff. Cain and Abel treasury-shized one shot is killer fun. I think I got that. I'm not sure if that's what I got from Image. Vision is good, existential crisis for artificial life, great science fiction and philosophical concepts bandied about under the premise of a murder mystery. Check it out. Okay.
Yeah, the Tom King comic I first read was Omega Man. And while the exploration of Vega's political system was interesting, for some strange reason, Kyle Rayner is running around moping because he lost his powers and does absolutely nothing for 12 issues. And okay, why is Kyle Rayner here?
I read that Mr. Miracle, was that the one he did?
Yeah, Mr. Miracle is boring.
It was. It really was. And Mr. Miracle was one of those things I also came to the realization that it would have been better if it was an indie book and not related to any universe whatsoever.
Sure.
Because it's like there were some like dramatic deaths in it that were just pointless because nobody was really dead. It's a DC book. Darkseid didn't really die in Mr. Miracle.
Yeah.
They killed a couple other people too. And it's like, they didn't really die. We know that. Why are you... It's like, he's doing his own sort of in-context book, which is okay. But I was just like, you know what? There's no drama to any of these people dying because I know they didn't die. Like even in Dwellings, there was more drama and horror in this because he introduced you to the characters, and even though you only knew them for a few pages, when they died, you went, "Oh no, they died," because they're not coming back. Everyone in a DC book is coming back. So any of their death, there's no drama to it. That's what got me about that Tom King one. Everything else by King has been meh to embarrassing. You think Scroach and Kane are gaining some recognition lately? I think Kane has. I don't know about. I think Steve Scroach had some recognition, but I don't think he's done any Marvel stuff in a while. Has he? I don't even know.
He was
No,
doing
I just saw him on
Clobbering Time.
What was that?
Clobbering Time?
Oh, that's right. He's been doing Clobbering Time. Yes.
Been doing that one.
You may be getting some recognition for that again. Because I don't think he's had a hit indie book. Shaky Kane, I've been hearing more and more about. I discovered him through Sleepy Reader, I think. He was the first Shaky Kane fan I saw. So I started looking for his stuff and got some. Omega Man and Sheriff of Babylon are worth reading, too. I'm trying to remember. I think I may have read an issue of Sheriff of Babylon, but just one. Mr. Miracle was frustrating. Yes, it was. Dwellings? So, yeah, Dwellings is good. Dwellings is by Jay Stevens. It looks like a Harvey comic, but it's horror. It's not even comedy horror. It's straight up horror. And it's good stuff. 3 issues, $10 a piece. They're like 64 pages. 2 stories in this one. I assume 2 stories in each one. Good to see Jay Stevens still working. Love Jetcat. And the new Berserker is by Scroach. Oh, that's right. I think there was a Berserker special, I think. That was by Steve. I saw that one too, but it was like $10. And I was like, no thanks. I don't need a Berserker. Even though it was by Steve Scroach, I was like, I don't want to spend $10 on this. On a Berserker story. But I looked at it and went, oh, looks all right. I'd buy it if it wasn't $10. But it's like a one-shot, I think. So I'd much rather spend my $10 on Jay Stevens. Sometimes things are not just not in the budget. I dig the tones with the coloring on the Gabriel Hernandez Walter. I just looked it up. The artist has some very nice backgrounds and sets. Okay. King's biggest failing, that's his former CIA. I hear he mentions that a bit.
Yeah, the thing is trying to make it seem like he has some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder, but he was an office analyst.
It could happen.
Yeah, he ran out of paper clips.
Nah.
Well, that's what he's allowed to tell us.
Yeah, they're all office analysts.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah.
As a former Marvel analyst, there was a lot going on.
I'm pretty sure that's Jack Ryan's exact line he uses in the Jack Ryan Prime show.
Mm-hmm.
He's always like, I'm just an analyst. Meanwhile, he's out there being an action hero.
Yeah. Yeah. And flying planes for the Central American Citrus Company.
John Krasinski, right? That's who's playing him.
Yes.
In the last 3s. I think they just finished that one. Season 3 was pretty good. Season 2 was a little dull. But okay. Okay. Want to do a rip, read, and slab before we go?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see what year we should do. All right. We'll do October 1942. Share screen.
1942. Let's see some golden age.
Some golden age. There we go. Blue Bolt 31, Regular Fellers 15, and Jungle Comics 36. It's always funny to me to see, like, because I always think comics were brand new in like the early 40s. So to see like 31 and 36 is always like, oh, they'd been around a while by 1942.
Mhm.
Yeah, at least
They were
2 years.
still pretty new, but they got 36 issues of something out.
I'm going to read Heroic Comics, rip Blue Bolt, and slab Jungle Comics.
What makes you want to read Heroic Comics?
Why are they fighting on
Regular.
top of a church tower, inside a church tower, and why is there a saw?
Is that guy made out of sound?
I'm not sure. He
'Cause it's
looks
like
like he
he's-
might be. It's like a cross between
Yeah.
a Plastic Man
Yeah.
and a
Yeah,
sound
he comes
character.
He comes out of the bell. So
Yeah, it
I
looks like
wanna see,
he's coming out of the bell on like a sound, like on a
Yeah, I
musical
wanna-
song or something.
I want to see what that is. Yeah,
Hey,
and I'm gonna rip. I'm
Blue
gonna rip
Bolt's a
Blue Bolt
Christmas
because it's
issue.
it's a Christmas issue. It's boring.
Ah,
Christmas covers are boring.
Why do you hate Christmas, Paulo? I can't believe it.
Wow.
Paulo
Humbug.
hates
The
Christmas.
war on Christmas carries on. Oh, I am torn on which one.
Conga
I
the
am-
Jungle Lord.
'Cause
Yeah,
they
I am
all
going to
look
make-
interesting.
I am going to make Mrs. Cratchit work for Christmas. Is not going to visit Tiny Tim.
I think I want to read Jungle Comics. I know what I'm going to get because almost all those stories are the same. But I think I want to read Jungle Comics. I want to. Damn. I think I would rip Blue Bolt and slab Heroic Comics.
See, nobody likes Christmas here.
It's not. No, I like that cover. Actually, matter of fact, I really like that cover. That
Since
airplane kind of reminds me of Courageous Cat's car because it could turn into an airplane and it looks a little like that. But
oh yeah,
but
Bob Kane probably ripped it off from there.
it probably came right from there altogether. Even the colors are similar. But the Heroic Comic, just there's something about that bell tower look that is like that needs to be slapped.
Since I don't hate Christmas, I'm gonna read the Blue Bolt.
Mhm.
Rip Jungle Comics and slab Heroic Comics, because the more I look at that cover, the more I like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna keep it mysterious. I don't want to know what's up with that guy.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to dolphin the ice skates that are being thrown from the plane to the chimney.
You throwing a dolphin into the chimney?
Yes. And the flamingos go on Leopard Bikini Girl.
I'm
top of
going
her
to have
head.
the flamingos listening to the bell tower because there are birds already on that cover. So I'm going to have the flamingos with them on the Heroic Comics.
Will they be flying or standing on the beam?
They'll be standing on the beam watching. That's what
Because
the flamingos are supposed to do. Is just always watching. And I think I would put the dolphin as the woman in distress above the fire.
Yeah, that would be an interesting
dolphin.
See, that would be an interesting story to read. Why is Kanga saving a dolphin in the African jungles?
Why is there a dolphin in the African jungles? That's the story itself.
A dolphin in Africa?
Oh, you know where I'm going to put the dolphin? For no reason. I'm going to replace the church steeple in Blue Bolt in the background with a dolphin. So there'll be a dolphin on top of the church instead of the steeple.
Ah.
A nice little art mystery going. People will be like, why is there a dolphin there?
Holding up a bell.
Holding up a bell.
But looking at the Blue Bolt cover and seeing that the church steeple's there, what's going on in that church steeple is what's happening in the Heroic Comics.
Yeah. That's a zoom in. And I'm gonna put a pink flamingo standing on that woman's knife or that man's knife who's trying to stab Kanga. So the flamingo will just be hanging out on top of the knife.
Watching
In the
what's
middle of
going
the whole
on with the
scene.
Mhm. Well, yeah, I mean, we know those flamingos are suicidal because they look at the atomic bomb and do nothing.
Yeah. I'm convinced King is still an operative in DC Comics as a psyop. That Rorschach books was textbook COINTELPRO. Nice show, y'all. Nice crowd. Way to host, Osborne. Glad you liked it. Glad you
Thank
liked
you for
it.
coming
you need to
by.
Sound
you need
man.
to show
Hell
up
yeah.
more, Sequential Geek.
Reed
you.
Bolt, Slab Heroic, Rip Jungle. He's on the same page as me.
Uh-huh.
Dolphin Airplane, and add flamingos on a spit over the flames in the jungle. Penetrate the chimney on Blue Bolt, fondle the bell on Heroic, and cry to sleep in the arms of Jungle. He's got a whole different thing. I don't know what game he's playing.
He's playing a different game entirely.
Yeah.
Eat the flamingo.
No. The flamingo is not to be eaten. The flamingo is
Flamingos watch.
is just staring.
The flamingo's
They're
just watching something.
The flamingos are our watchers. They only
They're-
watch. They don't interfere. They don't do anything.
Yeah, the flamingos are like the watcher. If your
They come and
garbage
watch.
planet is being taken over by a dystopian sect of a doomsday cult, the flamingos will just watch them as the bomb explodes. I got lots of little pieces now. Man, I really like that Heroic Comics cover. I wonder who did it.
Yeah, it's fascinating just because of that character. Because the colors of the character, and the musical notes on it is very similar to the characters that were. Oh, the TV show
Barbecue Flamingo is
escapes
so
me right
deep.
now. Oh, I don't remember that name of that comic book. They made a TV show after it.
And they were man, what's so weird is I can remember in the early 90s Marvel was so cautious about covering the logo with anything.
Yeah.
And it was like even in 1942 they were covering logos. 2 out of the 3, the figures go right over the logos.
I think that you could get away with that if the book has been out for a while, and these books have been out for at least 2 years.
Yeah, that could be
If
it too.
if it's monthly, so you could get away with that when it's this late into the series.
And I also just noticed Blue Bolt is on the cover twice, the name. Why?
So it can be seen from the side.
When
On the rack.
you have the character, when you have it on the rack
when
or
they're
on the
stacked
newsstand,
like that.
it gets stacked. So you
I wonder if they
be
did
able
that
to
every issue.
to read it. A lot of the books from that time period had a logo going down the side. So
I
that
know
was
they had
wherever
like
you
like EC Comics had them like up in the trade dress.
Yeah. And Police Comics and a few other comics, they had the characters on the side, so you could see who was inside.
Yeah, great lettering in Heroic Comics too. Yeah, good. That's a good logo right there.
Yeah, it's unusual for a Golden Age logo.
Yeah,
It looks like something that could have been made for a kitchen sink book in 1982.
Mm-hmm.
So
I remember
the cover's not
regular
identified.
fellers, but I don't remember from where.
The cover, they don't have a cover artist, and they don't have a cover artist for the strip either. It's called the Music Master.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Let's see if I can find a high resolution shot of that cover.
Regular Fellers was a newspaper strip.
Generally
And then that
interested in
main
the representation
hero-
of sound in comics beyond yeah, that's I wonder what that he's doing with those musical notes there. Do you recall the Will Ferrell scene from Eastbound and Down? It was bad.
There's a character from the Umbrella Academy who has like an all white suit with the musical notes on it.
Ah.
So it reminds me a little bit of that. But
Eastbound
again,
and
the crossover with like almost Plastic Man looking.
Yeah, it was interesting. He's coming out of a bell somehow in Heroic Comics.
I have to look up Heroic Comics.
Roll it up and truck in. We're going to do what they say can't be done. We got a long way to go and a short time to get there.
there.
Rock on, bandit, run. Because they're thirsty in Atlanta, and there's beer in Texarkana. By the way, that is the greatest movie. If anyone ever asked me what the greatest movie of all time is, I always say Smokey and the Bandit. That's my greatest movie of all time. Because any movie everybody ever mentions as their great, if you ever look up top 10 lists of greatest movies of all time, they're all depressing. The Godfather, depressing. Apocalypse Now, depressing. I'd rather watch Smokey and the Bandit right now than any of them. That's like The Wizard of the Oz is the only one in top 10 lists that isn't like a downer.
Mm-hmm.
The Wizard of Oz is my go-to movie for when it's like, what's your favorite movie? That's my go-to movie.
Yeah.
Just because I've seen it almost every year. And it's like when you're in a spot and you can't think of anything, that's the one I go right to. And if it's not that one, then it's them. The one with the 1950s movies with the giant ants.
I saw a TikTok yesterday from somebody who's not neurotypical, who said something like, when somebody asks you what your favorite movie is, they're really just wanting to get to know you anymore. Because when somebody asks me what my favorite movie is, I'm like, I'm not prepared for this question. I have to think of every movie I've ever seen and judge them all and try to figure out which is the best. And other people were like, I've been saying what my favorite is. Like somebody asked me that question when I was 8, and I keep going with the same answer every time. It's like, if I say something different now, was I wrong then? They feel like they're betraying their 8-year-old self by saying something different. But it's like when people ask you what your favorite movie is, you really can just pick a movie you like.
Yeah,
that's really what they're asking you.
You could just say Citizen Kane there.
And then it's like, I didn't find a Godfather all that
Venom's Bell
big a deal for me. It's like, yeah, I saw it. Okay, whatever. Because it's almost like how people love damn, it's Harrison Ford movie that about
Raiders?
the future. No, about the
Blade
Raiders.
Runner.
Blade Runner.
Yeah.
People's fascination with Blade Runner, and I kind of get some of it because visually it's beautiful.
I like Blade Runner a lot.
But it's like, then people break down, but which one? Because there's so many.
Right.
You got the director's cut, this and that. It's like, I saw it a couple of times. I enjoyed what I saw, but I can't deep dive into it.
But you know what? Next week, we'll when we got some time, we'll talk Blade Runner. I'll make a note.
Okay.
I'll tell you, and I'll tell you exactly when I kind of always liked Blade Runner, but we actually talked about it in one of my visiting artist painter classes in college. I'll have to tell you that story.
All right.
Yes, that's why I've always liked Dazzler, Claw, and Black Bolt, the sound character. Smokey and the Bandit, yes, greatest movie. Pulp Fiction, that's another one you could easily mention. And you're wrong. No, it's the greatest movie of all time. Bird Called Sally Frog. All of us wanted his car at the time. We sure did. Gore Vidal, hello. We summoned him before by mentioning Creepax, but he didn't show up.
Yeah, we should have mentioned Saga.
Wizard of Oz is fantastic. I haven't seen Wizard of Oz since I was real little. I never liked it as a kid, so I haven't seen it since.
As a kid, it's scary. That's the thing about the Wizard of Oz. As a kid, it's scary.
I didn't find it scary. I just didn't like the singing, and the
singing's annoying, especially with the Munchkins.
Fantastical musical. Though now, of course, since I've got the $1 billion Barbie wardrobe from it, I'm gonna have to pick Damsels in Distress as my favorite movie. The Whit Stillman one.
The best movie of all time.
The
best movie of all time. I've never seen it. I've only seen a couple of clips there on YouTube. It's an Indian movie that was in the Telugu language called Singham. It's called Singham. It's a cop movie, and it's usually You can search for it as Indian Chuck Norris.
Paulo mentioned the unmentionable.
Yes,
That's the ultimate pretentious film answer, though. It's like, what's your favorite movie? Well, it's one I haven't seen the whole thing of. It only exists.
Yeah.
Wow, that's some serious movie.
It's a Telugu police movie, but no, it's an action movie.
It's in a language that went extinct in 1978.
No, millions of people speak it nowadays.
Well, we should wrap it up for the evening.
Mm-hmm.
So we can say good night to everyone. We'll say one last goodbye to King Spoet. Hopefully he's in the afterlife reading some comics, playing some music, and having some fun. All right. You guys have a good night out there.
See ya.
Bye-bye.